Okay, so I got this in the mail today, and it has issues. So let's go through this one together. Um, so the first things first, I already unscrewed this top off. So, and I took the screws off the keyboard, and that's where I left it at. So I'm continuing from this point. So as far as the keyboard is concerned, we're gonna have to replace all of these stems up here because they all got sheared off in shipping, which is unfortunate. What ended up happening is they didn't pack it very well, and they used newspaper, and they put two power supplies in there. So as you can imagine, two power supplies bouncing around in this package took its toll on the keyboard. I'm just surprised that it didn't crack the case. If it was an older bread bin, guaranteed the case would have been in a million pieces. So we'll put the keyboard aside and we'll deal with that later. That's going to be easy. So let's find out if this thing works at all. So I already got the power supply plugged in. I already got it hooked up to the monitor. Let's turn this thing on. And maybe this will be a short video. Let's see what happens here. So we'll aim a little bit towards the screen there. And I'm going to turn this thing on. Okay, and get a black screen. So a couple of things we're going to do here. We're going to run the dead test. Okay, we'll do that. But there's another thing I wanted to kind of show you. We might as well go through a few steps. So obviously a black screen could be anything. A PLA, CIA, memory, RAM, I mean, you know, the big chip. So in this case, let's eliminate the ROMs. So I have here a cartridge. This is a Kickman. So Kickman bypasses the ROMs. So if Kickman doesn't work or doesn't show anything, then the issue is outside the ROMs. Not that the ROMs wouldn't be a problem also, but part of it is something outside the ROMs. So the Kickman cartridge is in. Let's go ahead and turn this on and see what we get. So we have better ways to test, but I just wanted to show you, hey, here's a simple way to know whether, you know, you have a problem with the ROMs or not. So let's turn this thing on. Okay, two things that were key. One, I got some sound. So cross my fingers, the SID chip is okay. And the other is I get this pattern. And this basically tells me that the ROMs are probably okay because this is something that's going on outside of the ROMs. So did that make sense? So anyways, the Kickman bypasses the ROMs. The fact that I have a problem still means that the ROMs are probably good. So let's narrow this down a little bit further. So I don't know, for what it's worth, it's one of those cool little tests that you can do. If Kickman would have worked and the screen would have gone up and everything, then you know that one of the three ROMs is bad. So that's really what the bottom line is. So let's go ahead and shut this thing off. We know it's probably not one of the ROMs. So let's run the dead test, shall we? down. Oh, okay, so we get immediate flashes. Let's count how many we're talking about here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 flashes. So typically, you know, that kind of points to RAM. So first things first, let's go ahead and take the shield off. Oops, forgot. This uses these torque screws in here. Okay. Let's get rid of this thing. All right. So here are the RAM chips here. So we'll start checking those. But first I'm going to take a shop vac and vacuum out a little bit of this dust out of here first. Okay, so I cleaned this up just a little bit and got some of the dust and grime off. And I also took some of the thermal paste off the chips. So first things first, let's get rid of the SID so we don't do something to mess it up. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and test it. Chip tester. So we're going to check the SID chip first. Okay. Good. So we have a good SID chip. So that's a plus. While we're at it, we might as well check the VIC-2 chip as well. Wow, that came off pretty easy. Looking at the pins and they seem fine. That just popped out so easy. Okay, that was interesting. So let's run this test one more time. This is for 6567. Failed. So let's put in a new VIC-2 chip. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be the RAM. When we got 8 flashes on the screen, and it could be the RAM, but it could also be any of the other chips as well. So let's go ahead and get a new VIC-2 chip in here. Okay. Make sure that this VIC-2 chip is working. Okay, so that passed. So let's pop this guy in and see if that's all it was. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the monitor. And see if this works. Turn this thing on. Still a black screen. And let's see if we still get the 8 flashes. I can either piggyback a RAM chip on it, on what I think is the bad one, or I can use the tester and test it in circuit. Okay, so I'm gonna opt for the in-circuit testing. So what we're gonna do here is select RAM 4164, and then okay, and we're going to do in-circuit testing. And we're going to unplug, make sure you don't power this thing on, and unplug the power from it, and get our jumper here. All right, so we're going to clip on we said that that would be U21, right? So let's test the RAM at U21 first. All right, let's hold and test. Failed. So just in case, let's test the RAM right next to it. Pass. Okay. Just wanted to make sure there's nothing wrong with the clip. So we know that U21. Let's just might as well check the rest of these on the bottom here. Sometimes these clips just don't clip on very well. Okay, so that one's good. That one looks like it's failed as well. So it looks like we have a few RAM chips here that are bad. So it looks like U21 is bad and U24 is bad. So let's start first with U21 and then we'll hit U24. We can test the ones on the top as well. Might as well see where we're at with this. It looks like it's bad as well. Yeah, that one looks like it's bad as well. That one's good. That one's good. That one's bad. So it's not necessarily that these specific ones are bad. They go banked with the ones below, so it could be that the two below that are bad are causing the top ones to be bad on the in-circuit testing. So what we're going to do is we'll start with U21 because that was 8 flashes, and if it still doesn't work, then we'll do U24 and see, and if it still doesn't work, then we got the two ones on top that we'll deal with, which is U9 and U12. Okay, so let's start unsoldering. We're gonna have to take the shield off, and yeah, we'll go from there. So it has the bottom shield. So we're gonna have to unsolder these guys. And let me just unsolder that because that'll take a little bit, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so I unsoldered the bottom shield. I gotta tell you, some folks give other YouTubers grief for grinding these things off. And to be honest with you, I don't blame them, because these things are a pain in the butt to unsolder and take out. It really is. It's really not even worth it, because it's just going to get tossed out. So anyways, but I unsoldered it. So first things first, that's the RAM chip that we want here on the corner. So just make sure we get the right one here. It's that one right there. So we're gonna first put a little bit of flux on here. And then let's go at this here. Okay, so I went ahead and socketed the chips that showed a failure, and I put new memory chips in here. So let's test these out now. There you go. So that shows it's passed. I've already tested these chips before plugging them in here, but there you go. In testing shows pass. In circuit testing shows pass. So nothing weird going on. So let's go ahead and put our big chip back in. And I'm not going to put the SID chip in yet. Let's see if this even works, or if we have any other errors. All right, so let's turn this on and see what happens. There we go. There we go. So it was those 4 RAM chips that were bad. Good thing RAM chips are cheap. Glad it wasn't the PLA or the VIC-2. So, well, it was the VIC-2. I forgot. We did replace that, didn't we? So let's put the SID chip back on there, and then we'll run the Diag test instead of the dead test this time. See what happens. Okay. Everything looks good. I have the keyboard disconnected and I don't have a wiring harness on it, so we'll get errors on a few of these chips and the ports as well. I just want to make sure the sound works. The SID chip tested good on the tester. There we go. Sounds clean too. All right, so there you have it. You can see I don't go through the ZIF socket taking things out one by one, and as you can also see, the dead test showed 8 flashes at first, which means, you know, this chip was bad. I went ahead and replaced all of them. What would have happened is I would have replaced this chip and then it would have shown an X amount of flashes for one of these 3 chips here. If you were to replace that one, then it would have showed you more flashes for the other 2 chips that were bad. So it would have been a constant thing until you got them all replaced. I just went ahead and replaced them all because the in-circuit tester showed that they were all bad. And when I unsoldered them, I put them on the tester, and sure enough, they were bad. So they weren't false positives. The other thing is these boards, pain in the butt. It's not like the other bread bins, the other assemblies where the pins for the chips are a bit deeper, so they're easier to unsolder. Once you unsolder these, the pins on these are bent to the right or to the left, depending on which side. Because they're bent, it's hard to get in there to unsolder. I use my unsoldering gun and it does a pretty good job, except for the ground pin on here. So you have to be really careful with that. On top of that, it's not enough just to unsolder the bottom. I use the heat gun to heat up the pins on the top side in order to pull it out, because there's also solder on the top where the pins meet the board here as well, and you may not get them all heated up and unsoldered with the soldering gun from the bottom. So anyways, these boards are just a pain in the ass to unsolder the chips on, or the chips from. So be forewarned, that's, you know, a nightmare ahead of you. You have to work on one of these. So I think we're just going to go ahead and wrap the board up. What I'm going to do next is just replace the stems. I have spares on the keyboard, and then I'll just show you at least how to replace the stems that were broken on there. I think I might have another video where I showed you how to drill out the stems from the keycap itself, but we'll go through that one more time. So stay tuned and then we'll wrap this up. Okay, so let's work on this keyboard now. Basically have a lot of broken stems, so we'll have to replace those stems. And I do have all the keys here, but I'm going to take all these keys out, and I'm going to try the Retrobrite immersion. I know that I've been, again, I didn't have much luck with it last time, but this time I think I'm just going to add less water, more of the peroxide concentrate. And because otherwise I normally would do this inside my aluminum lined box with the black light, but I'm going to also Retrobrite the case. So rather than using the paste that I brush on, we'll do the case in the immersion as well. So this gives that another shot, because I've researched that a little bit more, and I'm going to make a few little changes that I think might help. Anyways, that's coming up. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take all these keys off so we can wash them and Retrobrite.
You want to put the spacebar spring aside because the spacebar spring is a little bit longer than the regular key cap springs. So keep that in mind. Also remember, when you take the spacebar out, the rod here goes to the front of the spacebar, and the front of the spacebar is the one side that's angled the most. This angle is smaller than this angle, and that spacebar slides back and forth here, and basically it goes back towards the front. Now, unlike some of the bread bin keyboards, I pop these vertically up because the little socket for the rod is horizontal. Be real careful with that, because a lot of the bread bins, they have little tiny tabs that are easy to break off, and the rod pulls out instead of up. If you try to pull it up, you're going to break the little tabs that hold that rod in. So you want to be real careful with that. Okay. Now we're going to take all of these out and wash them, and then replace all the broken ones. Okay, the next thing we need to do is unsolder. I don't cut, some people cut them and then solder them back in later, but I like to unsolder these. So that's what we're going to do. I left one screw on here just to keep this in place, but let's see about getting these unsoldered here. I'm just adding a little bit of flux to these just to make it a little easier to get the solder up. Okay. So we'll go ahead and now, unlike some of the keyboards that have copper here, this keyboard here has this graphite on the board here. So what we're going to do is we'll just wipe this clean, and wherever there's any graphite missing, we're going to add some graphite to it. So the way I do that is with this Calicoat 44. So it's graphite that you can kind of spread on. So I'll just look for any that require that. Offhand, I don't see any that would require it though, but I'll look at it a little bit closer and take action as I need to. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and pop all of these stems out and give them a nice cleaning and replace them with spare stems that we already have. So and then we'll clean this terrible dirty keyboard, and we'll clean some of these stems up as well. Okay, so let me get this stuff cleaned up and then we'll be back. Okay, so here we have the stems that were broken, that were snapped, and they were snapped off from the keycap. So the top part of the stem is still inside the keycap. So we have to pull the stem out if we can. If there's enough to pull it out, we'll do so with this. And if there's not, we're going to have to drill
a little hole in them and put a screw in there and pull the screw out. Yeah, that one looks like it's going to need to be drilled. Same with that one. I don't think there's enough stem in any of these for me to... Oh, this one maybe. Okay, got that one. That one. Doing pretty good here. Maybe not. There we go. It's a matter of getting the little pointed piece of this kind of embedded into the plastic to be able to grab some of it and pull it out. This one wants to come out, but I can't get enough grip. There we go. So that leaves this little guy here. We'll try one more time, otherwise we'll just drill a hole, put a screw in there. Yeah, okay, that's them is in there way too deep. Okay, so I got a screw in the middle here. I usually use a little bit bigger screw, like a little wood screw, but it should be enough, good enough. There you go. The screw I used is from the keyboard. And there we go. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but that's clean. So now we got the stems all sorted out. I got replacements for all the ones that are sheared, that were sheared off. So I think at this point we are ready to put these in the ultrasonic cleaner. And then we'll retrobrite the keys and clean the keyboard chassis, if you will. All right, so be right back. Okay, here I've been retrobriting the keys. A lot of you have already seen some of my videos in the past where I do this. I basically brush on this Salon Care 40 cream onto the keys, and I put them in an aluminum lined box with a black light on top. That provides both the heat and UV light. So I'm going to shut off the light here. And take these keys out. Okay. So basically, I brush the Salon Care on the keys, and then I cover the container up with saran wrap in order to keep the moisture in, because what happens is when you retrobrite, the product will get blotchy if the peroxide dries on it, and so the moisture trap, the saran wrap traps the moisture inside to keep the peroxide from drying up. Now you should wear gloves before touching this peroxide stuff, because it will burn your fingers. It'll leave white marks. So I'm going to be real careful in taking this off, but I'm going to get some gloves here. So you can see the keys came out really nice. They're nice and white. So what we do now is I'm going to get some gloves, and I'm going to put this under cold running water to take the peroxide off, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so here are the final results on the keys. Already rinsed the peroxide off of them, just waiting for them to dry. The spacebar came out really, really nice. No more yellowing. The keys are all nice and white. So no sun needed. Just put them in this aluminum lined box with UV light. Just make sure that you put the keys in some kind of tray and cover it. I use this, and cover it with saran wrap to keep the moisture in from the peroxide. Leave it overnight, and that's what I get. All right, so let's get these keys on, and let's get this puppy wrapped up, shall we? Okay, so there's our keyboard, ready to roll. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just making sure I got all the screws in here. Okay, so we're going to put some thermal paste on the shield here. Okay, so now we can put this back. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now here's our keyboard. We gotta make sure the keyboard goes under these tabs here.
Okay, so before we screw everything back down again though, we are going to test it, make sure it works. Okay. Okay, so here we go. There we go. Awesome. Key seems to all work. To test the function keys, just put them inside of double quotes. There you go. The function keys all work. So I think we're good. And just to make sure, I'm going to shut this off and let's put the Diag cartridge in here. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay. All right, everything seems to work. U1, U2, U18, and the ports show bad only because I don't have the wiring harness hooked up. But can always do that later. But as far as I'm concerned, this thing is a go. So all we need is 3 more screws and we're done. So let's take this Diag cartridge out, just connect the powers and the video here. And let's put this puppy back in place. There we go. We got 3 screws here. So there you have it. Completely restored, retrobrighted, white keys, nice light beige color. Actually, the keys are light beige also, not white, but you know, it's all back the way it was. So we've come a little ways with that. We replaced a few chips and yeah, got this thing working again. So that will do it. I hope you got something out of this, even if it's just motivation. Learn from any mistakes I made along the way, because heaven knows despite the few years I have of restoring all these things, I still, you know, make mistakes. So anyways, that's what the videos are all about. So like I always say, life is short. You only live once. Enjoy it. Peace out.